This is a podcast by the Straits Times and Money FM 89.3.
Time to turn our attention to headlines from around the region. And as always, helping us out is Leslie Lopez, regional correspondent for the Straits Times. Leslie, good morning. How are you?
And good morning. I'm doing good on this Wednesday.
Nice to be speaking to you again, Leslie. And we knew this issue would come up, right? Sooner or later, the dry run for the Singapore-Malaysia land vaccinated travel lane. This was conducted at the Johor Causeway yesterday morning. Tell us more about how it went, the new protocols and procedures that will be implemented. And surely you're making plans to come over at some point?
For sure, yeah. This is clearly something that, everyone's looking forward to. The dry run went well. People are they're trying to iron out details. And, if all things go well, we could probably see this happening at the same time as a planned VTL between Changi Airport and Kuala Lumpur International Airport on November 29th. So a lot of people are anticipating that things will work out well. I think both sides have been working very hard to try and iron out these details. And generally, the response has been pretty good, actually, what happened yesterday's dry run. So I think we probably could see it taking place later this month. But I think it is not going to be the kind of numbers that, pre-pandemic days. We're kind of looking at just over 1,000, 1,400 maybe a day compared to several thousand before. So, but I think this is a start. This would actually really be a boost for both sides, the economy on both sides.
Yeah, got to start somewhere. Let's talk about the poor showing in the Malacca state election on Saturday, where senior Pakatan Harapan leaders came to the defense of Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim about his leadership, which was called into question. So out of the 28 legislative assembly seats that were contested, PH only took 5. What went wrong there?
Well, clearly Anwar has been panned largely because I think he was insistent about taking on the defectors who caused the state government to fall as candidates for the opposition alliance. But they were not the main reasons for the loss. Okay. More than 50% of non-Malays did not turn up to vote. Many, I guess, were frustrated with the state of politics in Malaysia. And, Malacca being very close to Singapore, a lot of Malaysians were unable to come back to vote too because they were working in Singapore and because of the travel restrictions. So, but closer look at the numbers also suggests that very little has changed in voter sentiment.
Okay.
UMNO's victories were very, very close, suggesting that, if you ignore the voter turnout, I don't think voter sentiment has changed that much. But this is clearly something that Mr. Anwar has to deal with over his, unhappiness over his leadership. And I think this time for soul searching for the Pakatan Harapan leadership and also Pakatan Harapan itself. How it has to re-strategize if it's going to deal with present itself in the coming election.
Certainly a confluence of factors there as well. Let's move to talking about Myanmar, Leslie. Myanmar's opposition recently revealed it had raised $6.3 million. This was on the launch of their inaugural bond sale. A revolutionary move, surely, to take down the ruling military junta. How will these funds be used against the military? How are they responding to the movement?
Well, the military has not really responded officially on this, but I'm sure this only underscores how the opposition is growing and how they are responding to the military rule in very, very novel ways, actually. So already opposition groups are trying to encourage people not to pay taxes, join protests, civil disobedience campaign, boycotts of army-linked businesses, even the national lottery. So all of this is going to be there. I'm sure for starters, at least, the money that has been raised and interestingly deposited in a Czechoslovakian account, actually, will go towards social media campaigns, all that kind of stuff. And so I think the opposition towards the military is evolving in very, very interesting ways. And we've seen this since the military took over government, actually, or took over leadership in the country. So, I mean, this is just another way of Myanmaris showing that they will not stay quiet and oppose the junta.
This podcast is available on our audio app. That's AWEDIO. Like us and rate us. And now, back to our podcast episode.
We're on the line this morning with Leslie Lopez, regional correspondent for the Straits Times. Leslie, over in Indonesia, the counter-terrorism agency there has warned that the Jamaah Islamiyah militants, or JI militants, were able to infiltrate mainstream religious organizations and government institutions as a new tactic towards achieving its goals. Okay, A, how did they do this? And how did Para Wijayanto's leadership sort of influence the JI's focus on combatants to religious propaganda and politics?
Well, JI has taken many forms over the years. And since it was actually after the 9/11 attacks, there was greater scrutiny on JI's activities. And since then, they've moved away from militancy to now infiltrating groups. And this, I think, is something that will need close scrutiny, will need to be countered by the Indonesian authorities. These groups are very, very convincing, and I think what is going to happen is that we're going to see there are many, many Muslim groups in Indonesia now that are sprouting out. And many of them don't have militant tendencies. But JI moving into these groups, getting them to, indoctrinating them in different ways, in very soft measures, is going to be something that the Indonesian government will have to really deal with this, And I think associations like MUI, which is a quasi-state body that receives state funding, all of these groups are now being targeted by the JI. So this is really troubling, very, very concerning, and I think something needs to be done soon,
And certainly it's something we'll continue to watch. Let's move to Thailand for now, Leslie. Apparently, despite opposition from some politicians and business groups, the country plans to join talks on membership of a Trans-Pacific Free Trade Agreement, the CPTPP, very much on the radar of many countries. Explain this dynamic to us. Why is Thailand so interested in joining it now? Why are these politicians and business groups opposing the idea?
Well, Thailand it's an open economy, needs trade, and, needs to rebuild itself because of the pandemic. But typically opposition groups, business groups, they kind of want that tariff-free access to other CPTPP member countries could lead to, flood of agriculture and pharmaceutical imports from some of those countries and harm local industries. This kind of opposition is always typical when, countries try to pursue open trade. And you're always going to get factions that are not happy because it's going to hurt their sectors. But it does look that Thailand is keen, given that China's already filed an application to join this grouping, which has been signed by 11 other countries. So I think there is not going to be very much stopping this. Thailand will become a member, and I think local groups will just have to accept that, this is how trade is going to flow.
Quick one, Leslie, this final piece about the Philippines resuming its military resupply mission for their troops stationed on atoll in the South China Sea. This after it was blocked by 3 Chinese Coast Guard vessels at the 2nd Thomas Shoal last week. What do we understand about this, and how will it affect the relationship between the two countries?
Well, the relationship has been, kind of rocky, but, both sides have been very, very basically concerned that they need to basically make sure that relations are kept on an even keel. So Philippines they've successfully transported food supplies to Marines guarding the disputed shoal. But after the Chinese Coast Guard used, water cannons to try and turn back those boats, Philippines has talked to the Chinese ambassador and assured the country that the boats would not be blocked again. But, this is going to be something that is going to evolve, and both countries will just need to keep communication lines open. But this is not something that's going to go away. China forever is going to try and assert its influence in the area, and I think the Philippines is going to want to say that, this is part of their territory and, show that they control these places. So it's going to be an ongoing matter.
We've been speaking with Leslie Lopez, regional correspondent at the Straits Times. Thanks very much, Leslie.
Thank you.
The Asian Insider Podcast channel is also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and our audio app. That's AWEDIO. Like us and rate us.